Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of this Organized Life podcast. I am your host, Lori Palau, and I am really excited for today's episode. I have been wanting to have our guest on for months, and today is the day. So I'm very excited to share her with you. So before I bring her out, I just want you to think about something for a second. Imagine if there was a place, a digital place in the world that you could have all of your stuff at your fingertips. You could have all the important phone numbers, all of your passwords, all of your kids' medical records, teachers' information, whatever you need, all of those day-to-day mom life things that we all struggle with, you could just have it corralled in one place that you could access at your fingertips. Would you want that thing? Well, if the answer is yes, I've got news for you. I've got the person and the product for you. And you know me, I'm not a product pusher, but when I come in contact with something that is a problem solving product, I want to do a deep dive. And that's exactly what I did with My Macro Memoir. And that is the product that our guest today created. And I'm going to bring her out to talk to you all about it. But before I do, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Jaclyn. I like to nickname everybody. So Jaclyn is the founder of My Macro Memoir, and she's going to talk all about that. She's also a trained CPA. That's what she does. So she has a day job as well, in addition to creating this incredible digital product for people. She's also a mom of two kids that are like, I call them the middles. They're like 8, 9-ish, something in that. And I think she has a younger one too. So she's like in the weeds, but she's going to talk about that as well. And she created this product out of her own need, which is when most amazing products are developed. And what I love about this is that it was designed by a mom for moms. And not that you can't use it if you're not a mom, but that is her core demographic. And since so much of our listenership is geared towards busy moms that are juggling work, life, even if you are a stay-at-home mom, you just have all the things, all of the things, all the volunteer things, all the PTA things, all the whatever, all the team things. This is designed with you in mind. So I tested it out when it was in the beta mode. I gave Jaclyn my honest feedback. She made some tweaks and enhancements, and it's great. And I love it. And so I said, I want you to come on and talk to our listeners all about it. So without further ado, let me bring my friend Jaclyn out to the show. Jaclyn, welcome to This Organized Life.
Thank you so much, Lori. I'm so excited. I can't believe that I'm finally here with you after all of the guidance and mentorship that you gave me just out of the goodness of your heart from the very beginning. So it's really my honor, and it means the world to me.
Well, thank you. And I mean, again, the pleasure is mine, and I love everything about what you do and what you stand for and your why, which I think is so important, because on this show we talk so much about like our why for doing anything or buying anything or investing our time in things, like whatever it is, like the why has to be really big. And the why has to be coupled with a really good strategy. And I think what you've created really does blend the two. And so I gave our listeners, an endorsement and a top line overview, but in your own words, can you just tell everyone a little bit about who you are? And then we can dig in to My Macro Memoir, but just let them know like who you are.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So I am a certified public accountant. I've been licensed in the state of Florida for about 19 years. I handle a lot of my huge passion as a small business owner. So I'm a big cheerleader for the small business owner and really helping them bring their businesses to the next level and coaching them from a financial perspective. I also have 17 years of mid-level. I'm a mid-level executive for a corporate 100 company that has come with a very, lots of bumps and bruises, but amazing learnings along the way when it comes to be more consultative and really getting to the core of what people need, right? Anybody could say, I'm too important. I don't have time. But the truth is, anybody has time if it's important to them. So figuring out people's why really makes me tick. And honestly, figuring out my why. So I have an unbelievable passion for empowering others, being a mentor, and leading by example. And so with that being said, I am very active in my community as far as giving back to nonprofit organizations. I sit on the board. Never thought I would be a PTA mom, but what do you know? Somebody ratted me out and said that Jordan's mom was a CPA, and they got me. And here I am 4 years later. But with that, all of these learnings compiled and kind of meshed together brought me to where I am today, and the service, My Macro Memoir, that I was actually able to create, that I hope brings peace of mind to anyone and everyone that sees value in it.
It's so funny. And all I keep thinking of is, you're not getting out of this PTA thing. For any mom that's listening, that's out, okay, once you get in, they're not letting you go. I mean, your
No.
kids, they'll be graduating from high school and they'll still be like pulling your shirt back, trying. I'm just, listen, take it from someone experienced. I dodged that bullet, but it was just replicated in another form. So once they get your hooks into somebody good, it's very hard to let them go. So
yeah,
buckle up. So give us like the story about kind of maybe give a brief overview of what My Macro Memoir is, and then take us back to what the catalyst was for you to decide this is a problem that needs to be solved, not just by me and for me, but for other people as well.
Absolutely. So I like to think of myself as a very type A person, right? Personality that kind of always has my stuff together. But I realized that wasn't necessarily the case. That was, I guess, in a format that would be usable to anybody but me. So My Macro Memoir is a one-stop shop that is a guided set of yes or no questions to help you think of anything and everything that may be important to you to store at your fingertips with portability and the ability to access whenever and wherever you need it, as well as a tool that takes the thinking out of this otherwise daunting process out of it for you.
And I think that is, you hit the nail right on the head, because, and you and I have obviously talked about this offline quite a bit, but one of the biggest things is that overwhelm piece of people going, oh my gosh, this is really a lot. That daunting piece, that feeling of overwhelm of how do you make this digestible so that people don't feel either anxious or stressed, like, oh my God, I don't have this, I don't know where it is. Like, how do you, like, it's easier said than done to do what you did, is really what it is, because there are so many moving parts. And any parent, and again, I don't mean to stereotype and pick on moms, but again, a lot of the primary caregiver role for people, yep. Okay, whether that's a mom, a dad, a grandparent, there's so many moving parts, always. Not to mention if you add in an external job and all those things that you have to handle, that we don't oftentimes stop to think about all of the information that we either are storing in our heads at any given time, or that we go through the motions. Like, I was even thinking in preparation for this interview or this conversation, all the things that are on my to-do list, I'm air quoting.
Right.
It's the end of the school year and I need to get this, and my daughter's graduating from high school and I need to make sure I check this off the box, and we have vacation coming up and I have to make sure so there's all of these things. And no matter what season of life you're in, that's an ongoing thing.
Yes.
And so to even give pause to really, like, write down and see it in black and white what are these things? And if I step away or if I need access to them, how can I corral that into one spot? And that's really what you've done.
Right. Absolutely. And I think, Lori, what you're saying is we all need to slow down before we speed up, but we're going a mile a minute. And it's so hard to be deliberate and mindful to do that when, regardless, like you said, of the stage of our lives that we're at, it always comes with a ton of stuff, right? And we've got to find tools, leverage. As moms, we want to be everything to everyone. And it's okay to ask for help. I never thought it was. And I had to train myself and teach myself that if I didn't, or if I didn't learn how to leverage tools that were at my disposal that worked for me, okay, I was doing nobody any good, because if I went down, this whole ship is going to sink. So I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing good by anybody. Like, I have good intentions, but they definitely will not be appreciated when, not if, when I am no longer here to do everything for everybody. And that's the bottom line. I think we've learned so much in the last year and a half, and the key is preparation. We could never have anticipated the entire COVID situation. No way, not in a million years. But what we can do for anything that comes our way is to be deliberate around how we prepare, because it's always less expensive, whether it's emotionally or in monetary terms, to prepare rather than to treat something and then to frantically get your stuff together in this case, or if it's a medical condition. Prevention's always cheaper than treating an ailment. And we have to look at it that way. And this is a lot tied to mental health and us being able to sleep better at night.
Yeah, absolutely. And it again goes to something that you and I have talked about. And I know that our listeners, we've talked about, done episodes on this before, which is looking at what is the urgent versus the important. And so many times it's human nature, especially in the world that we live in today, where we're this 24/7, 365, no shut off, that we're always dealing reactively of what's in front of us. Like, we're dodging whatever bullets coming our way in that moment, as opposed to saying something's. And so that's when that procrastination piece comes in a lot of times, out of going, I'll get to it later because I can't deal with it, even though it's important. And so I think that was one of the first things I said to you when I looked at it, is like, all of this information. And I do want to have you walk through like what each of the sections is so that people can have an understanding. But I said, this is all important information, but I think your biggest obstacle is going to be getting people to prioritize doing it, because it might not be urgent in the moment. But what the hope is, with education and just giving more exposure, really showing the value of this, that when the other shoe does drop, when something does happen, and again, it doesn't always have to be catastrophic. It could just be like, you're going on vacation. You don't want to be bothered.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't want your spouse calling you 20 times to ask for something when it could be right there.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like, bad. It could just be like, hey, I'm not here. Here you go. I'm giving it to you.
Right. Yeah. And leave me alone. Go away, basically. Absolutely. And would you agree, though, Lori, in your experience, and I wholeheartedly align with you as far as the important versus the urgent, that eventually the important always does find a way to being urgent?
100%.
Right.
100%. Absolutely.
So, what I've embarked on is so challenging, because it's really changing human behavior in a way, right? To start thinking about that and being more proactive rather than reactive. And so I will say that it has been the hardest thing that I've ever done as far as embarking on this passion of mine. But I am determined that I will not give up, because if I can just touch one life and make one person more efficient, sleep better at night, then I have done my job. And that is the God honest truth. And I believe that knowledge is power, that the times of codependency where one person in every relationship is typically the point person. For me, it's in my household, it's me. That the other person is typically clueless. Well, you know what? That's not a good place to be for me, because I want to be able to empower my spouse and delegate. I created a monster by saying, just give it to me, I'll do it. I can do it quicker than you. It left him in the dark, me the inability to delegate. And at the end of the day, it would have just been a hot mess. And I don't want that for anyone. And I'm sure nobody dreams of that at all. The other aspect is I'm 41. And sadly, as I grow older, so do my parents. As a daughter, I've got a brother-in-law. Granted, give the kid a lot of credit. He's a doctor. He's smart. He's all of the above. He ain't dealing with any of this stuff when the time comes, as far as organizing my parents and getting things that we need in order. It's going to fall on me. So my parents wrote their own memoir in My Macro Memoir, and I felt so much better. Even if it wasn't something I created, Lori, I would have still had that same feeling of, thank goodness, I am not going to have to search for breadcrumbs one day.
That's so true. And, my girlfriend's mother-in-law just passed away last week. She was 91, lived a great life. And they were going through her stuff. And she left 91. She left detailed. This is down to like, these are the hymns I once sung at my service. Amazing. This is the restaurant that I would like my thing, but everything was so organized. And I was talking to my girlfriend who's lost her own parents. And she said, I mean, as tragic as it is, and again, it was a celebration of life, but a death is still a death. What a relief to know that the guesswork was removed because everything was there. And again, this isn't about exclusively, and I want to really kind of put this disclaimer out, that My Macro Memoir isn't necessarily an end of life.
Not at all. Thing. It's me empowering my spouse.
Right.
I'm out of town. The dog gets hit by a car, God forbid.
Right.
I get a text in the middle of a business meeting. Where's the vet? Do we, what's the pet insurance? Blah, blah, blah. You know what? I have it now in my memoir. It's in one PDF document. I'll pull that up and I'll shoot that over instead of looking and copying and pasting and putting it all together to craft something that takes me way too much time when I'm in the middle of doing something else.
Right. So why don't you now just walk us through, because there's 7 sections, correct? It's broken down. And that's the other thing that I love about it. Again, from a logistical standpoint, for anybody that's listening and trying to get their head around it, it's not like one big thing where here you go. It's broken down by section. So it's very digestible, where you could do a part of it, put it away, then come back, do another part. So you're, again, breaking things down into smaller chunks. Can you walk us through what each of the 7 sections entails?
Absolutely. So I tried to make them palatable, and I want to say up front, Rome was not built in a day, nor will your memoir. Now, I will say my mom, approaching 70 years old, in quarantine, retired, loves projects. My mom embarked on it, started it, didn't stop, and it took her 3.5 hours from start to finish. She is not the way I envision somebody to approach their own memoir, right? So because it is in 7 sections, it is palatable. And in my professional opinion, questions that kind of make sense in each of the sections. So starting with the personal information section, the basics. What's your info? What's your social? What's your passport, your driver's license? Do you have a religious leader? Are you part of any organizations, clubs, or, do you have memberships? Do you have a caretaker? Do you have subscriptions for your home, such as, your Netflix or whatever the case may be? Do you have a family member you want to share info on? So for me, I did one for each of my children. I was able to upload their educational related documents. I was able to put in their immunization records, their birth certificate, all the stuff that I'm asked on their back to school paperwork all the time that like takes up the same amount of time, which is ridiculous every year. It's all now in their individual section. And I just printed one PDF and it was all together. Do you have a pet? Yes or no? And I want to add that every single question is a yes or a no. I'm not someone that is going to be prepared or desires to answer like long things, but clicking yes or no is definitely something that I would sign up to do over time. The next section goes into financial information. I don't want to know your bank account balance, how much money you have. Who cares? That's not what this is about. It's just, where's my stuff? Where do I bank? Do you have a securities broker? Do you have an annuity? Do you have retirement accounts? Yes or no, and just direction. It's about not getting intrusive. So we know that there's services out there that you can like link and put in your login information and it'll populate all your bank account balances and your full financial picture, whatever the case may be. For me, I didn't want that. I don't think that's necessary for me to have a good self inventory of what I have. That's what essentially we're doing here. And then are we finding things that are duplicative? We all spend money, on some of the same things over and over again, which we could eliminate potentially. Cancel a subscription that we forgot about. Great scenario. Or are there gaps? Have you been meaning to get your will updated since you had your second child 6 years ago? Yeah, I have. This is a reminder to kind of put it in black and white by simple yes or no, what you have versus you don't, and need to collect or may want to collect. We then move on to your professional providers. Do you have an estate attorney? Do you have an accountant? Do you have a investment broker? Yes or no? And what's their contact information? That's it. Very quick. Real estate. Do you own or rent your primary residence? Do you have a vacation home? Do you have investment properties? What about the logistical information? Crazy thing, some may think, but I take this on. I know where the water shutoff is in my house. I know where the breaker box is. I know how to shut the generator off, not my husband. And so I need to put all this information in there because I don't need like water spewing out of the sprinklers and him not know how to turn off the freaking water like down the road. I mean, seriously. Do you have a car? Do you lease? Do you own? Do you, real estate, boats, whatever will go in there. Anything and everything you may want to include, your mind will hopefully be triggered to think about it because of the question you're being asked. And if something's not relevant, click no and move on. And you're going to get a green check mark. I love the feeling of checking things off a to-do list. I'm sorry, it gives me this crazy satisfaction. So like the no will give me that check mark, as will the yes. And let's celebrate every question. I will say nothing is required. If you don't want to put something in there, it's not going to hold you up and not let you move on. So we all like options in life. People like options. You have that option. You don't want to upload a physical document because you are not comfortable with storing it in the cloud. Perfectly fine, Lori. All you have to do, or what you have the option to do, is simply free texting where the document is. Do you have your passwords written on a sheet of paper with pen and pencil? Pen or pencil on a sheet of paper? Fine. Just tell me that it's, in my nightstand drawer. Give the direction, because I'm going to admit, I have hid my engagement ring so well that when I went to go find it, I couldn't freaking find the thing, and I didn't want to admit it to my husband because that would be his way of saying, oh, you're irresponsible, or, having the opportunity to call me out on something because I probably call him out a little bit too much. And so I was like, no way, no how am I going to admit that this thing is gone? But at the end of the day, it was just exactly where I put it. I hid it so well that I hid it from myself. I need a personal memory assistant. I have a question. Do you have a secret hiding spot? And people sometimes look at me and they're like, that's shady. What does that mean? It's like, well, do you hide money? Do you hide cash like my mom told me to do when I got married? Jaclyn, I hope you're in love as much as you are today for the rest of your life, but you're going to have your own stash of money and he's not going to know about it. I do. I hope he's not listening, but I do. And there's anything else and then there's other. What could other be? A firearm, this, that, whatever you want it to be, write your memoir. There is an end of life planning section as well. And then there's a physical location of documents. So if you chose to upload as you went, they will be housed in the section. And if you didn't, that's fine. You can free text in this space where you keep physical copies of the items.
I love it. We're going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back and I just want to talk to you about some of the logistics and kind of potentially maybe front some objections or things that people might be thinking. So we want to dive a little bit deeper, but give everyone a second to digest all this and we'll be right back. Okay, so thank you, first of all, Jaclyn, for walking us through each of those sections. It's really helpful. And for anybody that's, probably thinking, oh my gosh, like she's dotted every I and crossed every T. She really has, people, because again, I've looked at this, we've talked about it, and it really is like making you think about things that you're like, oh yeah, like I guess that is something important. Oh yeah, I guess it is something someone would need to know. All that, those little things that we just take for granted. So again, it's awesome. What's been the feedback from people? Like I think there's probably people going, this sounds great, this is awesome, but
Absolutely.
fill in the blanks. So let's just talk about some kind of social cred. Like, what have you heard from people that have been using this?
Yeah. So when people actually get into it, they're like, oh my God, this is the easiest thing. How did you make this so simple? But it's one of those, I hate to sound like a used car salesman, but it's one of those you kind of have to see it to believe it. And that has been my biggest challenge. And I'm being completely transparent here. Everyone that I talk to, that I've engaged with about the tool and what it does is like, oh my God, I need that. Or, oh my gosh, I really could have used that when. That's the overwhelming first response. But the but is, Jaclyn, will you do it for me? Okay. And I'm not set up to do that, right? I thought that I was embarking on this thing that was simple, stupid, like not going to be this, huge undertaking. But to build something simple and stupid, I think is one of the most difficult things to do. And I was staying true to that. So now I'm here. I landed with something simple, but so not stupid. And it's all about that human behavior and the willingness people have to open up their mind, to take a look at it. I personally will not buy anything that I don't get to see and feel and touch. And My Macro Memoir gives you that opportunity for 30 days. You can go in there and you don't have to put your credit card in, because by the way, that annoys me too. Like, don't tell me you're giving me a free trial and ask for my credit card, because then I forget to cancel it. Then I'm charged and now I have more work to do. And I'm a busy working mom. Like, thanks, but no thanks. So I remove that because I really want people to go in there and see it and feel it. Up front, every section has a checklist. here are the things that you should consider physically gathering before you sit down to work on this section. It's going to make you most efficient, save you the most amount of time. The other thing is that I am in the process of having certified professional organizers and other professionals that have worked through the process with clients that are fully open and interested in taking on these types of clients and holding you accountable and coaching you through the process. So it's also a business opportunity for people looking for something to do. The working or the non-working mom, the stay-at-home mom, that now your kids are a little bit older. And like you mentioned, I had like the mid-ish level kids. I have the 9-year-old and the 6-year-olds. You know, if I wasn't working, this would be a way for me to start doing something and having a side hustle. Charge whatever you want hourly, right? The market will dictate what people are willing to pay for you to help them through this. Leverage the tool. It's fully baked. It's done. Go out there and make it your own.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point. And I see this all, I see this all the time in my profession as well, is, my goal has always been, and that's why we have tons of free resources on our website. And that's why we have the podcast. I mean, not only do I want to shed light on other people like yourself that are doing amazing things, but I want to also be able to give my own strategies and my own, information to people. But there is a level, and I think we all can fill in the blank of things that we just either don't want to do, or we're just not comfortable doing, or we just feel like we need that extra accountability partner.
Yes.
Right. I think it just boils down to, I might know how to do this, but the reality of it is I should just be able to do it on my own, but I'm just not. And I need a professional to help me. It could be a trainer. It could be nutrition, it could be whatever it is, and it could be organizing, and we see it all the time. That's what our profession is here for. And so I think knowing yourself, my whole point that I want to say to people is this is an important resource that you need, plain and simple, period, full stop. And if you are the type of person that is like, okay, I can, and you do have a coaching, like you have a Facebook group, which we'll talk about, so if people want like, just kind of like that group, I can check in, I have a question, you are monitoring it, all that stuff. And I'm like that DIY person, that's great. Then I say, go for it. If you are not that person, you're like, I really need someone to sit with me, to motivate me, to kind of get the stuff, to kind of help me through it, then reach out to a professional organizer, one of your people, whatever it is, because my philosophy is this is something that we all need, regardless of how you're putting it all together, whether that's by yourself or with somebody else. I mean, you and I've talked about it. I say, if you want, like, get a group of girlfriends together and be like, okay, we're going to meet once a week, and
that's it, over wine.
And, like a book club or whatever. And each week we're going to tackle another section together.
Right. Yes. And I'm happy you brought up the Facebook group. So the My Macro Memoir community group, I do have a presence obviously there. And if the demand, so I'm listening to the market. To me, feedback is a gift. And anyone that has feedback to give, I'll take it. And if the demand and the feedback is, hey, Jaclyn, we know that you're the founder. You know this very intricately. You're also a CPA, so I have those credentials behind me. I would happily host groups and Zooms where we come together as a group to encourage each other and go through the tool. So that's absolutely something that is available that I'm willing to provide. I'm in this not to win it, because like I said, for me, winning it means making a difference. So in any way I can help support people doing that, please reach out to me. I hope that you all feel by just this conversation that I'm an approachable person, and I'm willing to talk to anybody that has questions or feedback.
Yeah. And I could tell you, I mean, from the first time Jaclyn and I met, I was like, she's awesome. She's really authentic, a go-getter. Again, she's an Enneagram 3 people. We talked about that too, which explains why she made this super simple, because anybody who knows anything about the Enneagram knows that the 3s are going to find the most direct way to do something without the fluff. And so it's very on brand for an Enneagram 3. Absolutely. And it's true. And again, I would love to, and we've talked about this. So, I wanted this episode to drop at the end of June. Again, people could be listening to this whenever, but I wanted it to drop because, we're all in this rush, especially again, as parents, primarily with school age kids. And again, you have your people like your mom,
Yep.
who are retired and want a project. And my mother-in-law would be the same, and this is a project, go do it and you can bang it out. But most of us, the majority of people listening, are not in that camp and
Right.
have little snippets of time to do things. And so I thought, you know what, maybe if your summer slows down a little bit, this is a thing that you could put on your to-do list to prioritize. And so we're going to make sure, as we always have links, we're going to have links in it. Again, Jaclyn offers a very generous 30-day free trial, which I've actually told her I think she should shorten it, but she continues to give a 30-day free trial because she's really wants to give you guys the time to get into it. And I could say, like, I know for a fact we've had many a conversation without any microphones. And this is something that I believe in. I know she believes in. And it's something that, it's kind of like when you go to the doctor and you say, would you do this on your kid? And then they say yes. And you're like, okay, I feel good about it. That's
Right.
how I feel about this for people.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's my endorsement there. But so just to kind of switch gears a little bit to just talk about you. So I just said, you're an Enneagram 3. So all of our Enneagram people know you're the achiever and all of the things. What was your life like growing up? Were you always organized? Were you always the type of person that juggled a lot of things well? Or is that something that came like later into your adult life?
No, it's always been the fabric of who I am, to be honest with you. So my mom the house was always clean. Everything was always put away. I followed in line with that, right? And my kids, it's going on right now. You say in some aspects, you don't want to become your parents, but in that aspect, I do. And I like it. And it's the way I personally thrive. So yes. And as far as managing, like, I was flyering doors to be a babysitter when I was like way too young to babysit. I mean, I can't even believe people trusted me with their kids. Like, what? But
I know. I think that too. I think I was like 11.
Yeah, like beyond. I'm like, what? But you know what? Sometimes I'm so desperate. I just need a breathing body that has a pulse to stay with my kids so I can just get out. So I kind of get it, but I don't know. I would have been a little scared, but I've always been very type A, definitely in line with that, number 3. And then it translated without me even realizing it into my macro memoir, because it's not sexy. It's really not. There's no bells and whistles. Like, it's not looking all high tech-ish. Because let's just get it done. Like, enough already. And that's how I've always been. I take a lot on. I've had to learn to say no sometimes because I can't do it all, even though I want to do it all. I really do, but I can't. So I have evolved and I have grown personally and professionally to learn when to say no. Not right now, maybe later. But I've also really realized that if I am not busy, I'm not happy. So having multiple passions, and people are like, how do you do like all the stuff that you do? I don't get it. None of it feels like work to me because I truly love and believe in anything that I say yes to. Anything I say yes to, I believe in it, so it doesn't feel like work. Now, the tasks of filling out paperwork, like I have to say yes to that, and it's not fun. But like that comes with my kids, who are fun most of the time when they're not fighting. And I adore them. but I also know kind of what not to take on, Lori, that won't allow me to thrive and be in the right mental state to be there and show up my very best. So being a stay-at-home mom, my hat's off to all of you. Hardest job in the freaking world. When COVID forced me into that, never hire me. I'm the worst. Like, couldn't do it. I probably, my kids will be sitting on a therapist chair later in life because I probably, was not saying the most ideal things to them at all the time. I just can't do it. I'm not good at it. So knowing where your strengths and your weaknesses are has been a big part of my evolution and kind of landing where I am today.
Awesome. Sorry, my dog is barking.
It's okay.
So I know. So I'm sitting here and yeah. So, but it's so true. And listen, we've all been there, and I love you just sharing that. So I guess Jeter agrees. That's why he's barking away. We're going to take one more quick break. Then we're going to come back. We're going to just tie this all up with a nice neat bow, put you in the hot seat for our wrap up questions. And before we do that, just tell everybody where they can go to connect up with you and learn more about My Macro Memoir.
Absolutely. MyMacroMemoir.com is the website. To find me and to connect with me, go to support@mymacromemoir.com, or there's a Calendly link to get a call back, and you can schedule time with me on my calendar. At this point, I've got the time. I'll make the time, right? Because it's important to me. I will make the time to connect with anybody that has an interest in connecting live.
I love it. Okay. And of course, we'll put links to everything in the show notes. So we'll be right back. And then Jaclyn will answer our wrap-up questions. Sit tight.
All right.
Okay, Jaclyn. So this has been such a great conversation. I'm so excited. I hope everybody, as soon as they're done, they run right over, sign up for a free trial, join the Facebook group so that they can ask any questions as they're going along. But anyway, we end all of our shows by asking our guests a few questions. You obviously have inspired me and inspired our listeners. What book in your life has inspired you? Something that it could be a classic, it could be a self-help book that's new, something that you've listened to that you're like, or read that you're like, yeah, this has been a game changer for me.
So the book, Who Moved My Cheese?
Love that book.
Yeah.
Such a great book.
So out of college, like I shared, I'm a CPA. So I went to work for Deloitte, one of the big 4 accounting firms. I freaking hated it. I was in a cube all day. Nobody wanted to talk to me. I'm not clearly your stereotypical accountant. And I would like bop around the office and be like, hey, how are you? Like my 21-year-old self in the real world. And people were like, what are you doing? Like, go back to your cube and do work. And I'm like, okay, this sucks, at least for me. Didn't like it. And I was miserable and I cried. Every day I'd call my dad, like hiding in my cube, like with the tears from like, so other people and my cube partner didn't hear me. And I was like, I can't do this. I just can't do it. I knew I was going to let down my family, and I don't want to let anyone down because I studied to be an accountant. You're supposed to then go on this path and it's this is the way it's supposed to be, but it was not working for me. So I read that book. And I was like, I am going to go for it. And I am going to totally try and find a career, find something to do to leverage what I enjoy, which is interacting with people and really feeling like I'm making a difference every day. Read the book, changed careers. I'm still a CPA. Nobody could steal that away from me, but I took the career down a different path, and it was the best decision I ever made.
I love it. And I'm in a season of life where I've got a lot of like recent college grads and kids in college. And so what you're saying is like really resonating with me for the people in my world. So it's going to be super great. And I haven't thought about that book in a while, and I definitely think I'm going to get it for some specific people. So thanks. It's like my favorite new question because I get so much great information. I love it. Okay. Really quick. Our last 2 questions are, because our show's all about honesty and authenticity. And we know that in life, sometimes we are thriving and sometimes we feel like we're a bit of a hot mess. So right now where you are, what part of your life, and it could be personal or professional, do you feel like you're the most organized, and where do you feel like a little bit of a hot mess?
All right. So most organized, thriving at the top of my game is when everything is going according to Jaclyn's plan. So I wake up, the first thing I do is I make my bed. I go through, look at my calendar. What do I have on tap today? My kids are off to school. The house is quiet. My husband's out of here, at work. And I am left to do my thing. When I am a hot mess is when that's interrupted in the least bit. So today my kids are off from school. Okay. I don't like it. It throws me off my game. Again, I love my kids and I don't want any of you to think that I don't, but I'm so much better with them and to them when I see them before school and then after school. And those are our times together. And I make the most of that time because it is limited. And then, of course, on the weekends, like I'm not one of those that's like, oh, let me go for a girls' weekend and leave town. I'm not one of those people because I know my time with them is limited and they're only going to be little for so long. But them being out of school, it does kind of make me hot messish because it's not the routine and it's a change. And that's the hardest thing.
And I appreciate you saying that because it's honest. And I think a lot of people feel that way, but for some reason feel like it's not acceptable to maybe admit it. And I mean, I've said it for years, and that's part of why I do what I do. And I have this show in this particular format because like there are times where it's like, again, you love your kids, but like, that I'm not at my best self. You're not at your best self. We need to just go like in our separate corners and put ourselves in a timeout. And that's okay. We all need a break. Yeah. So I appreciate you saying that. And, I value you. I value our friendship. I value like what you've put out into the world. And I can't stress it enough that this is something that I think that everybody really can benefit from. And it's not that you can't go through life without it, but it makes it a little bit harder. And this is a way to simplify things. And at the end of the day, I'm all about simplifying things to give you freedom later. So even though you're carving out time now, it gives you the freedom later. And that's really, to me, what living an organized life is all about. So make sure you check it out. If this is your first time tuning into our show, welcome. If you are a YouTube person, we are also on YouTube. Head on over. I'm still an old school podcast listener, but if you've got people that would prefer to look at me in my office, go for it. Follow us on YouTube. Of course, like I said, we've got links to everything. We've got a Facebook group where you can ask questions. It's called This Organized Life Podcast. You can, any topics, questions, whatever you want. If you don't like my outfit that I'm wearing on YouTube, you can put that in there too. I don't care. But I really appreciate you guys coming back week after week. We're always putting out new content, always thinking about ways that we can help you streamline and simplify your life, because that's what we're all about here. So thank you so much. Share this episode with a friend, and we'll be back next week with another episode of This Organized Life. Peace out.